Hi guys, I just want to give you a quick life update slash baby update. So as most of you guys know, I was expecting a child and right now I do have my daughter at home, and it's been one entire month since I filmed anything, and I uploaded a couple of pre-filmed videos, and yeah, I think I should just give you an update. So let's talk about my labor and delivery experience first. I don't think I'm gonna go into a lot of details just because too many things happened and it's been quite a while, so I feel I should just give you a quick summary of things. And if you do have questions about anything that I mentioned, please just leave them down below. I would love to share that with you. I would love to talk to you more about things. If a lot of you guys are still interested, I can definitely do a part 2 of this video, or if not, I am happy to share my experience with you personally. I think things started on July 22nd. So early morning, July 22nd, I start having contractions. They were pretty regular, but not very painful. They were strong enough to wake me up from sleep. It lasted probably like about a good 3-4 hours, and they are probably like 8 to 10 minutes apart, and they wouldn't last too long, but it kind of stopped right around 7 or 8-ish in the morning. I knew it was coming soon, but it didn't happen. And by the way, my due date was actually on the 19th, so I was past due already, and I had my induction scheduled on Monday the 25th. And then on 23rd, the same thing happened again. So it was also early morning and I started having contractions. Exact same situation, and it kind of stopped maybe around 9 or 10-ish in the morning. So I wasn't sure what was going on, and to be honest, I was being impatient and I wanted the baby to come out soon. I was walking around drinking a lot of water and try to, just get it started, and it did pick up again in the early afternoon, like maybe noon to 1 o'clock-ish, and they're getting stronger and the contractions are getting a little bit closer to each other. So I think it was about in the evening, like 5 o'clock, that's when I started feeling the contractions are really strong, and then they're really close, and it falls under the 511 rule. So I feel okay, we should call the hospital. So we did, and then they're like, all right, just go ahead and call me. So I think we got to the triage of the hospital right around 6:30 p.m. And then when I got there, I was only 1.5 centimeters dilated. We went upstairs and then I think they gave me Pitocin. Prior to receiving Pitocin, I had a lot of strong contractions, but none of them would make me actually want to like scream, not scream, even like make a sound. I feel I can just like and then I can hold on to it, but then once I got Pitocin, I think the contractions are so strong I have to like make noises to calm myself pretty much. And I think that's when I start to kind of not on top of the time anymore, because I'm so focused on the pain, and then time is just gone. I don't know. So I think maybe after an hour or two, my guess, I don't know, I asked the nurse to check how dilated I was, and I was considering maybe I should get epidural. And I think at that time they checked, I was only either 3.5 or 4.5 centimeters. So I was like, you know what, if this is gonna last like another 5-6 hours, I don't think I can do it. Just give me epidural. So I know I received epidural at 10:30 p.m. They told me just get some rest and maybe, things would progress on its own. So I tried to sleep, but it wasn't very comfortable, to be honest with you. I kept waking up a lot, and then they would come in and check on me a lot. So I think throughout the night, there were 2 incidents. All the rest of them are pretty regular checkups. They would just come and check how dilated I was, if I'm hydrated, and things like that. But then there were 2 times that the baby's heartbeat dropped significantly. So a lot of people just rushing to the room, like maybe like 10 or 20 nurses and doctors, and then they would flip me, or they asked me to stay on the bed but on my legs and hands, so I'm facing down, and then they would check the baby, and then they gave me some medicine. I don't know what. At that point, I wasn't thinking anymore. I'm just doing whatever you asked me to do. So they put me on oxygen, and then they would turn down the Pitocin, and you know, maybe after like 15 minutes or so, things would calm down, and then everyone's like, okay, just go back to sleep, everything's fine. This happened twice, and then after the second time, the doctor told me if this happens again, they probably would consider C-section, just because the baby isn't really enduring the Pitocin I'm receiving. So they really couldn't turn up the Pitocin, and I'm not dilating fast enough. And also they broke my water, and then they realized my water was already dirty, so they didn't want the baby to stay in for too long, so we're just gonna watch it. I think we got to probably like 7 or 8-ish in the morning. Both of those two incidents, they're the same thing, just happened twice, and then they both happened before 7 a.m. I think around 7 or 8, I kind of woke up, and you know, I didn't want to sleep anymore. I really want to get the baby out, and I didn't want her to stay in me any longer. So I kept asking the nurse to come and check on me, and I'm not progressing very well. So it was still, I think, only 6.5 dilated. So I was really discouraged at that point. I felt, you know, after like 12 hours, I was only able to progress 5 centimeters, and how much longer do I need to do this? Maybe around noon on the 24th, they checked on me again. They're like, oh, you're like 9.5 or something, so you're probably ready to push soon. And then I started to feel the contraction to come a lot stronger, and I purposely not turn down, because you know the epidural, you can just push the button and give yourself more epidural, but I purposely didn't push the button for a long time because I kind of want to feel more of the baby. I don't know, I want to feel her when she comes out, you know what I mean? So I think by then I start to feel a lot more contractions, and they're not really painful, but a little bit. Actually, I think that was around 11. Yeah, that was around 11, because soon after that, I told the nurse I feel I could push. I start to feel the urge of her coming out. So the OB came in, and then she kind of taught me how to push, and then we tried it a few times. She was like, all right, just keep doing this. I'm gonna come back and check on you regularly. So we were doing that, and I was pushing for 3 hours. Yes, I did it for 3 hours. So I think I started pushing right around 11:30, 11:15 on the 24th. So I started pushing, and they kept telling me, oh, you're doing it great, you know, she's really calming down. But after maybe like an hour or so, I kind of feel, I think you guys are just saying it to encourage me, because how come otherwise she's not coming out yet? So I felt really tired, and I knew I had a low fever at that point, and I was dehydrated, and the nurse told me, so I had fluids coming in, and I got so tired that between each contraction, they're probably only a minute apart, but then I would fall asleep between those like 2 contractions, and I would even have like dreams within the minute. So that's really crazy, like how tired I was. I would push and right away fall into deep sleep and come right back up to push it again. So I think after maybe around 2 hours of pushing, the OB came in again. She's like, you know what, we're gonna give it another hour probably, and if you still couldn't push her out, we're gonna use forceps, or we're gonna try to think of some other ways to help you to get her out, because this is not great. So I got really nervous, and I was like, okay, I need to get this done. So I started pushing really hard. Well, not that I wasn't pushing hard in the 2 hours before that, but you know, it's more like a mental thing. I felt like, all right, I really need to do this. So right around 2 o'clock, the doctors came in with all their tools, because they're ready to use their forceps and they're ready to take her out. But when they were setting up those things, I actually got her out on my own. So she was born at 2:16. because they broke my water before and then they knew the water was dirty, so they had pediatricians standing by because they wanted to make sure the baby wouldn't have anything stuck in her nose and whatnot. And then they already told me they're gonna bring her to the side real quick to, you know, clean her up and then bring her back to me. So I was prepared for that, and then there were pediatricians standing by, and then they took her out. You know, she was brought away to like a side table right away, but she was there like for a long time, and I started feeling this is not right. And then they start sewing me up already, and then it's been like, I don't know, half an hour, and then she's still over there. They're not bringing her to me. So my husband was really concerned, my mom was really concerned, but for some strange reason I felt rather peaceful. I was like, oh, what's going on? Well, I'm sure she'll be fine. I don't know, maybe I was just out of it at that moment, you know, after all the delivery experience. But then they put her in an incubator, and then they brought her to me in the incubator, and then they're like, okay, you can't look at her, but we're gonna take her to the NICU right now. I was like, okay. And I kind of looked at her, but I didn't get to really see her because there were so many like equipments already hooked up on her. So I only saw her eye, like one eye, and then they took her away. I'm sorry, I'm trying to be really calm and not emotional because this is all past now. So anyways, when they took her away, they asked my husband if he wanted to come with. So he did. He went with her, and then he came back maybe like another hour later, and then he didn't look that great. Like, he wouldn't talk to me, he wouldn't, you know, respond. I knew something was wrong, but there were still a lot of doctors around me, so I didn't ask too much about it. So afterwards, you know, after they got everything done about me, like got the placenta out and everything, so they're like, okay, you can come to the NICU and visit her. That's when, you know, my mom got all my stuff and went to the postpartum room, and then I was gonna go with my husband to the NICU, but then I had low blood pressure, so I couldn't really leave the bed. Once I get up, I just felt dizzy, so they didn't want me to leave the room. So everything got delayed for another, I don't know, an hour or two, to a point that the pediatrician who were in charge of my daughter actually came back to the delivery room, and then she just stayed there and then talked to us. She told us a lot of things. I wasn't really getting it, I guess. I was so tired, I feel I couldn't even pay attention to what she said. But then, you know, after a whole lot of like explanation, I guess all the technical terms and whatnot, eventually she said, we feel your baby could survive. Like we're pretty confident she can survive. And I was like, what? Like, I thought there was something probably wrong with her, but I never thought like survival would be a question. So anyways, it took us about another few hours until we can finally go see her in the NICU. And then we went up there, she was in a special room, so apparently what had happened to her is she had oxygen deprivation, so her brain was damaged for a couple minutes, I think, because she wasn't breathing when she came out. Her Epgar score was only 1 when she was born, and then by 5 minutes, I think you were shooting for 8, but she was only 2. And by 15 minutes, her Epgar score was only 6. They said she had brain damage, so they hooked her up onto this ice cap thing, or they call it cooling cap. I wouldn't explain too much about that, but if you're interested, you can look it up, and of course I can answer questions. So pretty much that process takes 72 hours, and they already put her under the cooling cap by the time I went to visit her. They had all kinds of tubes hooked up on her, and it was heartbreaking to watch her like that. And she was pretty much not conscious for 72 hours. So after 72 hours, they were going to take the cooling cap off, and the purpose of that is that the cooling cap would pretty much slow down any brain activities so that the brain has time to recover. And once the cooling cap is off, that means the brain starts to warm up again, and then she's going to pick up on more brain activity, and there's going to be a whole lot of things that could go wrong during this time. So after 72 hours, they call it rewarming. So they took off the cap and then they started warming her up again. We knew that was a dangerous time, but we had a lot of hope. We were hoping, you know, she could be just fine, you know. So I thought things will be great once she wakes up again. But actually during that rewarming stage, I think that lasted, or they were watching her very closely for about 24 hours. They put her under EEG, which, you know, monitors the brain waves. She had a lot of seizures. The smaller seizures would last for about a couple minutes each time, and they would be, I don't know, a couple hours apart, and the longer seizures will last like 40 minutes at a time. And I think that day was like the hardest day in my life, to watch my daughter having seizures and there's nothing I could do. And also just thinking all the possible things that could go wrong. You know, she could be paralyzed for the rest of her life. She could be, you know, mentally challenged. Everything, I don't know. I just don't know what kind of life would lie ahead of her. And then the doctors had to put a lot of medicine on her, you know, phenobarbital, Versed, and then they pretty much had to put her to sleep again, so that way her brain would calm down again and wouldn't cause further damage to her brain. So the hospital actually put her in a kind of special room. So we have two rooms. One room is the operation room, if you would. It has all the equipments and the nurses and whatnot, and then on the side there's a room just with couches, futons, and a way as parents could stay there overnight. So me and my husband actually stayed in the hospital, I think, for a total of 6 days, and we didn't even step out of the hospital, even though I was discharged 48 hours after the delivery. But I just came right downstairs to the NICU and stayed there for another 3-4 days. We pretty much just lived there, and our parents, my mom and his parents, were both there, so they were able to bring us food and, you know, kind of try to take care of us. We just couldn't bear the thought of leaving her, and also we couldn't come home. I couldn't face, I don't know, when we left home, you know, all the hope we had, oh, we're gonna come home with a baby soon. But actually, if we did go home at that point, I think it's just too much of a shock, and I knew I wouldn't be able to take it. So we tried to stay in the hospital, and we completely shut off all of our communication with the outside, you know, friends, family. We don't want to talk to anyone. I think when we're just talking to the doctors and nurses, things are very rational still for us. We're just talking about the disease. How is she gonna be able to heal and all that. But if we're talking to family and friends, I just don't think we can deal with our emotions. It's just too much for us. There were a lot of things going on, and I wouldn't bore you with all the detailed treatments, but in the end, the doctors told us they had no clue what happened to her, because my pregnancy was completely normal, my delivery was just fine, and then there was nothing that went wrong. There was no evidence to show what could be the problem. So I don't know, I guess it's kind of by chance. And me and my husband, we prayed a lot, and then I think it's not by chance. I would rather think that God has put this in our life and he has allowed it, even though it's really hard to accept or acknowledge the fact that God would even allow for such a thing to happen to us. But I was still grateful. I was grateful that she survived, and I'm grateful that I have a daughter now. Anyways, I think after probably about 4 or 5 days, she got a lot better. She woke up, and then she was able to look around and maybe just be not so very much alert, because she was under a heavy dose of Versed for a long time. It takes a while for the medicine to wear off. So I feel she was kind of out of it, and me and my husband, we also transitioned from a stage where we're like on top of every little detail. It's almost like we're going to med school. We're trying to learn everything from scratch, and we talked to every doctor and asked about every detail, to a point that we realized how helpless we were, and how we are completely out of control of the situation. So we decided we're just gonna give all the control to God, and then He's gonna take care of it. So I think at the end of it, we were kind of like, the doctors would come and try to explain to us what was happening, and we're like, you know what, you don't even need to explain to us, just do whatever you think is the best, and then we trust you. It was definitely a emotional roller coaster that we went through, but eventually she came back to it, and then we were able to get an MRI down on her. And then the MRI result came back rather positively, actually. There was a small spot on her right side of the brain, and then because at such a young age you couldn't really explain what that means, or what it would, or the cause, or the, you know, what it would cause. So it really doesn't mean anything, it just means there was something, and it wasn't too much, I guess. So we were rather happy with that result, and they were able to do some physical examination on her later on, and then everything physical about her was just fine. So eventually, you know, we were moved to a more regular room, if you would, and then they were just trying to get her on a regular schedule and try to make sure that she knows how to breastfeed, and then they are trying to take off all the tubes one by one and make sure she still stays stable. So eventually she was discharged on August 9th. So she was born on the 24th of July, and then we finally brought her home on August 9th. We're very grateful, and then right now she is doing great. She acts just like a normal baby. We don't see anything wrong with her yet, but then the doctors schedule us like a ton of follow-ups. We have to see the NICU follow-ups, we have to see the regular pediatricians, have to see neurologists, and we have a lot of like different ultrasound scheduled technicians and whatnot, and we just have to watch her closely and see if she meets all her milestones throughout the way, and maybe to see if actually there was any permanent brain damage. And of course we hope not, and I am hopeful that, you know, things would just calm down. And I think throughout my prayers I have the confidence that no permanent damage will be done to her. Yeah, that's pretty much it. And I guess I should say that throughout this experience we've grown a lot, me and my husband, in faith. And we I never talk about my faith on my channel, but I just feel I couldn't really avoid talking about it, because in this experience there was nothing that could helped us to go through other than God. If we didn't have God there with us, I don't think we could do it. I think on the side I should give you a little bit more life update in general as well. So I got my degree last May. That's when I graduated from grad school, and we moved to Chicago in the late summer, and I got pregnant right away. So I didn't work at all since I graduated, but I wanted to work, so I started applying for jobs when I was very pregnant, and I started hearing back from companies right now. So right now, after the discharge, I was going through a lot of interviews, and I had to take my daughter to, like I said, a lot of appointments all over the place. So in this past week, every day we're doing something. It's either I'm going for an interview or I'm taking her to an appointment. And I haven't had one day that I could just sit at home with her yet. So that's really tough, but I think those things need to be done. For that reason, I am not doing too much with my YouTube. Even though I really want to come back and do more videos. I really enjoy doing YouTube videos, but you know, the life right now, it just gets the better part of me. I have to balance it out, and I have to do those things first before YouTube. So I hope you guys would understand that, and I would try to, of course, still keep on with all my project videos. I haven't been using a whole lot of makeup apparently. I only use makeup when I have to go for job interviews. So my projects, they wouldn't be doing so good either. And as you can see, I'm not even painting my nails anymore. I just don't have the time for it now. But anyways, I think that's just pretty much the summary of my labor and delivery experience. And my baby right now, I think she is asleep, so I'm not going to disturb her sleep. I will just insert you a couple pictures of us. I will try to find some pictures to post here, maybe some of her in the NICU and some of her now, so you have the comparison and whatnot. So that's it. If you have any questions about anything that I have mentioned, please leave them down below. If you have similar experiences, please share that with me, and I will pray for you for sure, because I know what it feels like at this point, and I know that support from other people is really important. I was really glad that our parents were there, and then there were a few close friends were there, and then they prayed for us, and you know, our church knew about it. I think that really meant a lot for us, and if you really need any help from me, I would be glad to provide that. Yeah, please just ask questions down below, and if necessary, I could do a part 2 of this. And thank you guys for watching. Bye.